calling our meeting to order. Okay, Stephanie, would you like to
Well, we
go
want
over
to,
what we're gonna be covering?
well, right now, we're covering the organization of the business, which is the recognition of our two new board members, which is Miss Erin McKenzie and Mr. John LaHood. And, if y'all wanted to introduce yourselves to everybody, or what y'all wanna do? Do you wanna introduce yourself?
I'm Erin McKenzie. I was formerly Erin Williams, here in Clifton. I was born and raised here. I currently take care of my parents, who are in their 84, so I'm home with them a good bit of the time. And, this is my year I wanted to get involved.
Okay, thank you.
I'm John LaHood, lifelong resident of Brooks County, business owner here in Brooks County. Employ about 100 people here locally and about a little over 300 company-wide. And also elected as state representative, who covers all of Brooks County in 2018. And hopefully I can help a little bit on the development authority. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Mr. LaHood, could you tell us a little bit about your company entrepreneurships?
I'm a senior care, assisted living community owner, operator, and we provide, housing and care to over 100 senior adults here in Brooks County, over on the east side of Brooks County. And it's been a family business since 1978. And our corporate office is based here in Brooks, and we operate other communities outside of this area too.
That's impressive.
And, we still need a secretary, like I had mentioned before. So we need a motion if, Miss Erin would like to be the secretary.
Sure.
Okay, so you're actually volunteering to do
To be the
that?
secretary.
Okay. I have a motion that, we have Erin now appointed
I'll
as
make a motion
secretary.
that-
Okay, Doc makes a motion, we have a second? Erin?
Second.
Okay, John, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, no opposed. Had you talked that over with Darren?
No.
Okay, okay.
Okay, next we need approval of the minutes.
Okay, we have the November 9th minutes, which was our regular meeting. And then we have the November 16th minutes, which was our special call meeting. Okay, I hear a recommendation for approval of the November 9th minutes. You wanna read those minutes, Stephanie, or?
Yeah, I don't have to read them if you wanna, I mean, I can, but you can also read them. And it's up to you. Did you want me to read them, or?
Well, let's just go over some of the highlights of them.
Okay, well, we ratified my position on October 21st. And then, let's see,
November 9th,
yeah, that's what I'm looking at. We went to review the old business, items. We looked at the single quote for the industrial park signage. Talked to or discussed about putting out formal requests for bids on that. We updated the board about the IGA, that it had been ratified. Let's see. We had, we discussed the community grant applications and guidelines. We ratified those, accepted those. Let's see, we moved on to our community grants. City of Barwick was approved funding for Christmas lights. We looked at, I had discussed with the board about Thomas County, talking to them regarding Morven and Pavo's needs, or not Morven, I should say, sorry, that I shouldn't say Morven, I should say Barwick. But Barwick and Pavo's needs regarding our projects. And according to the Payroll Development Authority, they said that the Commission was not interested in helping, it's our sister cities. So anyway, we went ahead and approved the city of Morven's Christmas lights for $76.40. And, let's see, we then, moved, or the board wanted to table the rest of the community grants until November 16th because there was a lot of paperwork to go over. And then we reviewed the proposal for the GIS planning and, as well as the proposal for the website for Civic Plus.
Okay,
Then,
November 16th.
November 16th, we went over the community beautification grant for Macedonia Foundation, which was for $1,500. The Philanthropy Films project, which was approved for the full $7,500. The Boys and Girls Club, also $7,500. The Quitman Brooks County Historical Museum, the Family Connection, which was for Heaven's Sleigh, and the Community Foundation of South Georgia, which was for the Washington Street High School alumni for the gym. And those three were also for $7,500, and those carried. And then we further reviewed the GIS planning for our website, and that was also approved for their plan for that, which was $5,000. And then that was it for that.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I second.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, an acceptance of the financials. You wanna go over those reports with us?
The very first page has, which has out, the balances and everything, those are correct. When you look at your balance sheet, everything other than what I understand at Maris, everything should be correct on that. Mr. Ziegler is going to work with me and get that caught up as far as, our accounting software, so then that will be correct. But as far as the first page, where it says financials and it has everything broke down, that is correct. So it, I don't know if you have any questions on it or.
Now, you were telling me the other day that you were gonna move that money out of Ameris over to our operational
I am,
account.
I'm
Did
moving
you?
that,
You
I'm
haven't
moving that
done
tomorrow.
Okay,
I haven't
you're
done that
gonna
yet.
do it tomorrow.
I have that ready to go so that it's ready to be signed so that I can deposit that tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
What report are we looking at?
You're the very first, well, you're looking at all the financials, but I'm on the first page, which
The one you
has,
handed me when I got here?
Correct,
We're
yes.
looking at the first page, John,
the one, it's in your notebook,
Notebook, all right?
yes.
It gives all our various deposits in the various banks.
Looks like this, the first page we're looking at.
Okay,
So just for clarification, the Ameris Bank account balance.
yeah,
Is that what's on this first page or the one?
What's on the
balance
first
sheet?
page.
Okay,
yeah, we have, it starts out with 4 Citizens National Bank accounts. Then it gets down to Ameris Bank and then Citizens National Ameris and so forth. Anybody have any questions as to what we have and where it's located? Okay. Okay, assets and liabilities and capital. Everybody satisfied with that? Page 2. Okay. Everybody satisfied with the balance sheets then? Any questions? No questions. Okay. How about our income statement? Any questions concerning it? Okay. Okay, are there any questions on the income and cash flow statement? Everybody had a chance to look it over? Okay. Let's approve the financials then.
Make a motion that we accept and approve the financials.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the financials. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second from Doc. Okay, all in favor of approving the financials?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay. That's approved. Okay,
The next is, about the entrance signage to Industrial Park, and I was gonna let Mr. Devane.
Just hadn't got to it, I had some questions. Do we wanna go after the same style sign, or just give them basic dimensions and, signs of lettering and let the, prospect develop a drawing or presentation to submit and a price on
well, I for one would take that original sign. I wanna see us get a sign in the industrial park. Now, that original bid was for 2 signs, correct? That was 48,000 for, roughly 48,000
it?
for
That was
2 signs.
2 signs with lettering on both sides.
I do have one question as to, coming up right after you cross over the track, that entrance to the south.
No.
Where would you put that particular sign?
I had a plot laid out when we did the original industrial park.
Uh-huh.
We may have a pole and utilities in the way now, we just have to go out there, but what I had proposed was on that, northern side, where it's kind of level, not on that high side, but on that low side, set it in there, so you can see it well coming from the north or the south.
Well, I was particularly looking to see where a sign such as the design was,
Yeah.
would, be that visible on both sides. Now, down by the plant, further north there in that first entrance after you leave equipment, there's plenty of visibility. But I was having a hard time locating a place for that sign on the southern entrance.
Well, we can look at it, there's a utility line been put in there since the plan of the original industrial park plan.
Right.
Copper EMC's come in there and established their territory for the pole line, so, and ran it all the way up to those, almost to the apartments up there to keep their territory. And, we can look at that, I mean, we can put it on that other side, it's a higher bank, and clean off the place, put it there.
Well, I would like to get us a sign in the industrial park as soon as we can possibly get it in there. I don't know that we're gonna get a whole lot better bid, if we have the same type sign, over the same, construction material and et cetera. Now, if we go to a different sign, a different material, I can see maybe some other company, coming up with a design for us if they were to take a look at it. But you were going to, what Darren wanted you to do a design, was that it? Or did you understand what he
No,
wanted?
what I was, I never understood if we were just gonna put it out and say, give us a sign and a price, and let them have at it, come up with what they came up with, or whether we were gonna go back after the same style. See that, on that original, of course, we've been through that, he can't get the stonework now, because we were gonna use the stonework like on the front of the, Lowndes County office, downtown office, admin building there, and letters like that. He can't get those cast stones because they've done away with the forms and everything, it'd be prohibited. So he came up with another drawing that I think I gave y'all to use, split face block, you know, and reinforce them and then, keep that same beige color and black leather. And,
That was in that 48,000 pack.
yeah, see, when he bid the first time, it was like 40,000, but it was a lot more elaborate, and the development authority put it off, but the next bidder was like 67,000, I think, and the next one above was above him, about 72 on that original plan that we had.
What is the board? Doc, what's your thoughts on that?
On the tentative, perspective of the sign that we looked at before, that was $40,000, there was some contention about, well, Yerby said something about, he thought it was a mammoth amount of money for the brick enclosure and all of that. There was this, not dissension, but there were verbal opinions on our board as to the authenticity of the quote. And what I think about it, if it's a formalized proposal and we have consensus of opinion, of course, and we'll go along with the consensus.
I'll share my copy with, both of you, Aaron.
John and Aaron primarily, you hadn't seen it yet, yeah.
The other board members, if you all will remember,
Building new.
I'm
It
trying
It'll be
to
the
think
first
if
time
I
it's
have-
ever been there.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be the first sign that have been in there. I don't know if you're looking at, Cawthon's
That is,
sketch, it
Yes.
is, okay. Cause the original one we came up with way back when we first started to do it,
That was in 2010, I believe.
something like that, but
Yeah.
the development authority decided at the time we didn't have an industry in there, and everybody would frown on it, so we didn't do it. Of course, that would have been like no other sign in the territory, but too late now.
Yeah. Well, I was perfectly satisfied with that sign design and so forth, and, I didn't think the price was that far out of line.
right, I remember, Chairman, you said that, but you had two dissenting opinions, the members on here.
Yeah, I think Mr.
Yerby and Barnwell.
Yeah,
Right.
Aaron was the main one.
and the material and everything. And that's what I was asking, because at one time, we were talking about, Mr. Yerby said, well, there's a sign company or two in Adel.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of sign you want? You know?
And they do have a sign company up there.
Oh, yeah, they
I've passed it a number of times, but,
do a lot of business signs and everything,
yeah.
but, you know, that's.
Well, we want a very nice, I want a nice sign, I don't want just to stick something up out there that, says this is the Brooks County Industrial Park.
Does this quote include the actual graphics,
Installation
the
and.
graphics on the sign?
Yeah, the
too,
lettering
not
on
just
the side, we're gonna use the aluminum letters like on the building over there at Lowndes County, it's the admin building. 12 12-inch high letters. For a while, they was having trouble getting black in it, but I want the black to contrast with the background of the sign.
So it's roughly 7 foot tall and 20 foot wide.
Right.
Yeah.
And the proposal was that, they would build a sign at the locations we gave them at the entrances. They would build a sign and we would, take care of the lighting, either have the city do it, the county do it, or something, have floodlights on or something that we can come up with later. And they would just furnish material and build a sign and place it wherever we see it. And I've gotta go out there because on those corners, the city has put in some utilities that may not have been by the master plan. So we have to work that out, but we still own the vacant lots where we put them, so if we want to, we can cut us out another sign track, just a few feet.
Now, were the 2 signs flanked one entrance, or are they in 2
No,
different
no,
spots?
we put one at each entrance, put letters on both sides,
Yeah.
so whichever way you're coming from, it's the same sign.
Right.
And light it.
Yeah.
So we'd be getting four sides.
And, yeah, they get 4 sides, two monuments, 2 structures.
And this is with the split face rock, not the cast, because we couldn't get the
Yeah,
cast
we
anymore.
can't get that anymore, it's gone.
That seems in line with the prices I've seen in the past.
Yeah, I don't see it being that, out of line. I would have, just as soon have gone with it a month ago. But I know.
Yeah, I understand the process.
Yeah, we're okay.
But that's up to y'all, that's why I'm asking the question, because there was a lot of discussion last time. And we can get a sign, we can get a cheap sign, but, we were holding out for something that kind of set it off, because we got one nice industry and a very nice building in there.
Yeah. I'm satisfied to go with what we just looked at, to go with that myself. It is a nice sign, a very nice sign, and, it will help to set off the park.
Yeah, I'll need to go out there, if that's what you decide on, and look at what utilities are in and look at it and stake it off and I'll get with you or let everybody look at it before we give him the order to put it there.
Okay. Do I have a motion, from any of the members to
I think John
go
had a
with this
question.
sign?
I've got one more question.
Okay.
Is there a time frame specified for Kaufman Construction to complete the project? In other words,
That I'd have to ask.
He didn't give us a time frame. Well, we've been holding him off for 2 years and everything, but what he told me, we didn't get him specific days, but he said, it would probably be after the first of the year, and that's been 2 months ago. So they got, in other words, I think they've got about 60 to 90 days lead time before they can get to it, because it's not a major project for them,
Well, would it
side
be,
project.
It's a worrisome to them,
Right.
would it be maybe fair to say, we could see a sign by next fall?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, August, next
He
August.
was talking about 3 months lag time with the work they got now, and that could change, but I could work with him on a deadline.
All right, well, that's, if we can have it in there by the end of the summer next year, that's fine.
Oh, well, I don't see any problem with that, but I can talk to him about a commitment on time.
Okay, okay.
Of course, the sooner we get to get it done, the better, because we.
Well, obviously,
I mean, I know, yeah, because we've got some
obviously, the
businesses,
sooner
I
the
think, that
better,
are,
but I,
industry's
we
looking at it.
need to make a commitment to the project, and
Yeah.
we never have committed to the project.
Right.
Yeah, we can handle that,
Okay,
or get him to handle it, get him to come back with a
we
time.
have a Well, do I have a motion from someone to go with this particular sign and project?
Make a motion, we go ahead.
Okay, I have a motion from Aaron,
I'll second.
a second. Okay. I'll call for a vote. All in favor of this particular sign, signify by saying aye.
Uh,
All right.
Doc, what you doing?
I said aye.
Oh, I didn't hear you, sorry. Okay.
Okay, I'll talk to them tomorrow.
Then the motion carries. Let's go with this sign. I believe it'll be a quality sign, and it will, certainly, we've got our park looking nice. I don't know if any of y'all have been out there recently, but, it's been cleaned up and mowed, and it really looks pretty good. Okay?
Next is our website update. I just wanted to let you know, as it was approved, last month for the website, I have had my preliminary discussion with, Civic Plus, who will be designing our website, and, so my first deadline that I have for them, or they've given for me, to start getting some things together for them is the beginning of January, so, it'll, as long as we stay within those the deadlines that they've kind of set forth, we should have the new website up and running by May, because there's so many different processes you have to go through. We have like 4 teams that are involved of people that will get this website up and running, and it's gonna be fantastic. It will be nothing like the county or the city of Brooks has ever seen, and it certainly will surpass anything for our sister cities or counties. So it's going to be beautiful.
Okay.
And then next is going to be financial audit.
Okay, new business. Mr. Ziegler.
Good afternoon, good evening. I don't think we've been able to present this audit for about 3 years. Much stuff has been going on. I didn't think we were gonna ever get to do it this year. But it did get done. And it has already been submitted to the Department of Audit, by the way. This is your annual audit of your financial statements for 2019. And I guess everybody has them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right, there's an index on page 1 that shows you what the content is, and I'm not gonna go over that, but you can read that. There are 2 reports in this statement that are actually my reports. Everything else in the statement is your information. The statements that I have is my independence auditor's report that's on page 1 and 2. And then there's a report on internal control, over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters, which is on page 17 and 18. I want to start with my report on page 1 to begin with. And some of you may have never seen a report quite like this. This is a governmental type report, and it's different from industry. It's broken up into several components, several parts. The first one being an identification of who you are and for the year that this is being audited. And the second part has to do with what is your responsibility to these financial statements. And it says that you are responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. And that includes the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements so that they're free from any material misstatements, whether that be due to fraud or otherwise. And then the next section is my responsibility. And I'm not gonna read all that to you, but I would love for y'all to read it though. My responsibility is an expressed opinion on your financial statements. And that's based upon the audit work that I do, the testing and the procedures that I select to apply to your financial statements. And then the next one is the important one, and that's my opinion. And I will read that. It says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects, the net position of the Brooks County Development Authority as of December 31st, 2019, and the revenues and expenses and changes in net position, and we'll go over those statements, and cash flows of the authority for the year then ended in accordance with the accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. And then there's another section in here called Other Matters, and this has to do with the management discussion and analysis. GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standard Board, recommends and actually requires that be presented for purposes of additional analytical analysis. However, it is not a required statement under other standards, and because you don't have to do it, we don't spend a bunch of money trying to create something that's not required. And your financial statements are okay without it being in there, and they are acceptable. We'll talk about preparation of financial statements a little bit more later on. And then in other reporting, then that's the one where I refer to the report that I've got on page 17 that concerns your internal control and your compliance matters. And that statement and this statement are to be considered collectively as far as my report goes. But you're getting a unqualified opinion or an unmodified opinion, which is what you want to have. And I have given you that again. Let's go on over to page 17. We'll just get those out of the way. And then we'll come back and go over the financial statements. All right, this is also a required report. If you had a single audit, it would be different, but you won't have a single audit unless you have government expenditures or government funded expenditures of over $750,000. And y'all have not had one of those in quite some time. Typically, you would get several grants that would accumulate to be that. You will have a $300,000 grant in 2020, which is the one that funded some average and expenditures. But this report begins similar to the way we do those others, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. But it's just stating, we have audited in accordance with generally accepted accounting auditing principles your financial statements. And then we get into an explanation of internal control over financial reporting. And I do encourage you to read that to understand it. The parts that I have to bring up and we have to talk about, though, is where I have findings. And it comes down to the next to the last paragraph where it starts with a deficiency in internal control. And it starts out with the definition that says a deficiency in internal control exists when the design or operation of a control does not allow management or employees in the normal course of performing their assigned functions to prevent or detect and correct misstatements on a timely basis. And then it goes on to what is a material weakness, and that is a deficiency in internal control or a combination of deficiencies such that there is a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement may occur and not be found and corrected. And the deficiency that I have to cite, and the county gets this too, and most small communities, most small governments do, it says, and we'll go to that finding now, and that's over 3 more pages. On page 20, the 2019-001 is the absence of an optimum level of appropriate segregation of duties. And let me say this, segregation of duties would be where we had different people, multiple people, doing billing, collecting, making deposits, doing the bookkeeping, doing bank reconciliations. Anytime one person does all that, you've got a weakness. And it also says accounts payable, check processing, bookkeeping, reconciling bank accounts, and the preparation of financial statements, where you have a few people, or in this case, one person doing all that, then I'm required to caution you that you have that weakness. And we'll talk about what you do about it too. And what I've said basically gets down to about the middle of the page where the response is. And this response I have written for y'all, this is the same response we've used in previous reports. And it states, the board of directors recognize this weakness in internal control and realize that financial statement errors and fraud could occur and not be detected or not to be timely corrected. The board has determined that the size of the organization and available financial resources do not justify hiring additional personnel solely for the purpose of mitigating this condition. Typically, in most organizations, you need 5 to 7 people to mitigate this, to eliminate it. And, you know, the cost is just prohibitive for y'all. All right, and the financial statements are presented, reviewed, and approved at each monthly meeting of the board. Schedules of receipts and disbursements are also reviewed and approved at each meeting of the board. The authority's annual budget is incorporated into the accounting system and is a part of the monthly financial statements. And that the board also believes that the active involvement of the chairman, secretary, and treasurer minimize the opportunity for fraud. And I will tell you, the Department of Audits is accepting that explanation year in and year out. Okay, when we come down to the next one, let's go back 3 pages. And then we get into the area of what's called a significant deficiency. And a significant deficiency, or a combination of deficiencies in internal control that is less than as severe as a material weakness, yet important enough to merit attention by those charged with governance. And that is, back on page 20 is the 2019-002, and that's the preparation of financial statements. Theoretically, I am not supposed to prepare the financial statements that I audit, but I do. And that creates the finding. And the cause of that is the last paragraph, is that you do not employ enough persons with the experience and training to do the financial statements and keep up with all the GAAP accounting principles and so forth. And then over on your response, we said the board of directors have considered alternatives for the preparation of annual audited financial statements and schedules, including employing the services of another auditor or consultants, and have determined that the authority's audit prepares the statements is the most economically feasible option. There are governments that hire other auditors or other consultants to come in and do financial statements. But when you do that, you're basically, you could be doubling the cost of your audit and not have anything any better than what you got. And that y'all formally manage, the board and management formally reviews and accepts responsibility for our financial statements, notes the financial statements, and all related accompanying schedules. And that gives me the things that I have to do. Now, everything else is yours in your financial statements. And we'll go back now to about page 3, I think it is. Now, I've given you, have you given all of them the extra handout?
Mm-hmm.
The financial statements, pages 3, 4, and 5, are good and nice, but comparative financial statements are more meaningful. So I've given you 3 comparative financial statements that you can look at as we go through this. And then you have more detailed financial statements on the last 2 to 3 pages that gives you a lot more detail than the summarized statements that I've given you on page 4 of these statements. So you have a lot more information available to you in those handouts than you have in this audit. The first statement is the statement of net position, which is a statement of your assets and your liabilities and your what's called net position, net worth, fund balance, if you want to call it that. You show that you have total assets of $3.4 million. And the Brooks County Development Authority is pretty well off. Now, it's not as well off as some authorities in the state of Georgia. I mean, you can't even compare with some of them that's in Columbus and Macon and Savannah, particularly the one in Savannah. That's a tremendous authority. That's also the Port Authority. It's part of that one. I mean, they've got multi-millions of dollars of assets in those authorities. But you've got a lot of them in the state of Georgia that are a lot smaller than you are too. Unfortunately, you can help with this, John. Carl Vinson Institute is supposed to be, well, they do capture and make available all the city and the county governmental audits. The legislature has not had them take up and collect authority financial statements. They need to. There needs to be a repository out there where everybody can get access to everybody else's financial statements. I get them because I call the Department of Audits and I say, send me some examples, or send me so-and-so. And the Department of Audits does that, but you hate to put that burden on the Department of Audits to do that. That's not what they're supposed to have to do. We can use some help in that regard. But anyway, and out of your total assets, your net worth, virtually the same thing. You only have $7,000 in liabilities. The accounts payable, I believe, if I remember right now, it's been a long time since I did it, that was 2 months of American Express bills that hadn't been paid at the end of the year. The $4,500 was mostly payroll taxes, and I think some pension costs that hadn't been paid, and health insurance, I believe it was owed at the end of the month. That one is normal now, but having the American Express bill that's been paid for 2 months was not normal. And then the next page is the income statement, which shows what your operating revenues were, and what your operating expenses are, and what your net change in net position is down towards the bottom, the $116,000. And if you look on the second page of your comparative statements, you'll see the 3 years on that handout. Your property taxes and fees, mostly that comes from the tax commissioner's office, and you get some fees from Ginger at the clerk of the court, or recording fees and intangible taxes that come your way also. The bulk of it is property taxes, though, that comes from this tax commissioner's office. And of course, the $75,000 was what was paid to you in support payments from the county. $6,000 was a utility right-of-way, I believe, that Georgia Power paid off to go through your industrial park. And then the next grouping is we break expenses down by personnel services, professional, technical, just what you see there. And on your handout, about page 4 over, I believe, you'll begin to see that there's more, or 3 pages over, I guess. Well, 4 over is where the expenditures start. And I try to break those expenses down between administrative expenses and then economic development expenses. And one of the reasons I try to break those down is that everybody always wants to look and see how much are you spending in administrative expenses versus what are you doing to accomplish your objectives. So this gives you a little bit more breakdown and helps you understand that. And your economic development expenses were down in 19. Not as much was done as had been done previously. But most other expenses, salary and wages went up quite a bit last year in 2019. And if that was because of bonuses that got paid out for that year. Other than that, most everything else is relatively close to the same. And if you have any questions about any of these numbers, we can open the books up and show you where those numbers come from. They're all in your books. The next page, page 5, in the report, is probably one of the most meaningful statements, I think, in all the statements. This is a cash flow statement. This is basically money in and money spent. It shows you where it came in and how you spent, how you incurred expenses. And like I say, it is cash basis. And of course, it shows that your cash and cash equivalents increased to $121,000 during the year, up from $864,000 to $966,000. And then the bottom part of that is just a reconciliation of the operating income to net cash provided in operations. And net cash provided in operations is that group of accounts up at the top of the statement. anybody have any questions about what we've got gone over so far? If they had the statements, and they had the opportunity to go over them or look at them.
Mr. Levy just got his, and Doc Horn just got theirs just a while ago.
And I'll be glad to go over this, any page, every number, line by line, with anyone who wants to do so.
I'm just thinking.
I just wondered if y'all had a chance to go over that, or just you just received it, go for me.
Yeah, but I know what's
Ready to go ahead to the next? All right, the next section in the report is the notes to your financial statements. These I encourage you as well to read, because this is a lot of information about the authority and what you do and the assets that you have and what makes up a lot of your numbers. And the first part is about your creation, how you were created, and what and the scope of your responsibilities. You are a limited purpose, special purpose form of government. You are a unit of the state of Georgia as a governmental unit. You're a governmental unit, but basically is equivalent to the county and the city. The one big difference between you and them is that you can't levy taxes, but they can. Otherwise, you're basically the same. But at the same token, you're also interdependent and interrelated. And in fact, the pronouncements and so forth, the official pronouncement that says that you are related are down at the bottom of that page, and it's really the last four of those 6 bullets. And because the county appoints you, they control you. They can control you, depending on the level of authority they want to exercise. In fact, if we say they could impose their will on you if they want to. They can do it by appointing or removing you or so forth. And they have a potential to have a financial influence on each other. Just like them levying the taxes that they do, If they choose not to do that, they're gonna limit the scope of what you can do significantly without going back to them and borrowing money and having them agree to put the tax digest up for bond issues and so forth. And that has been done in the past. And there is a physical dependency by the organization of the county. So for those 4 bullet reasons, we say you are very independent and that makes you a component unit of the county government because of that. And being a component unit means that your financial statements are included in their financial statements. And that's really all that means. But this goes over how you were created, how you were appointed, and it gives the authority, what powers you have, and so forth. In fact, some of this is actually summarized out of the legislation that created you. Did you
Well,
get that
we can't-
created legislation for them?
And I have that at the office, honey.
Okay.
We can't be dissolved except by the General Assembly, though.
I would think that's correct, yeah. And your powers cannot be reduced or expanded except by the General Assembly as well.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've ever seen where once an authority got created, it got changed.
Yeah.
If they have, do you know?
I've never heard of one.
I'm not either.
No.
And Henry Reeves is the one that helped get you created. that's all we need to have you.
Yep.
Okay, that's that page. All right, then the next page starts, and we're talking about accounting policies and procedures. And a lot of this is just, you need to read this for information because it gives you the types of contracts that you can get into and how they would be accounted for in your financial statements if you had them. Some of these you have had, some of you will have in the future, I hope. I mean, if y'all do what you want to do, you're gonna have these agreements and contracts. And when you do, this is how it will be, how they will be reported. And you have a lot of investments in property held for resale. And I'd like to turn to page 12, page 12, I think. Because this is a summary of the assets that y'all have, that y'all own, that y'all can sell, lease, or further develop. And you've got one down there, that 250-acre tract. And I've said this every time I come before the board since 2009 or 10. And Ben and I were talking about it before. To my knowledge, the deed for the infrastructure and the roads and streets that's in that park has never been deeded to the city.
Has never been deeded.
It has not been deeded to them, and it needs to be done. You will comment on it?
No, I just assumed it's been handled. I mean, we made that assumption, and
That assumption, yeah.
I think the city assumed the same thing, because they've been maintaining the water lines and sewer lines and everything. Of course, it's their utilities they're selling to their benefit. But the intent, the streets should be city streets. I've always thought they were, so Gary brought this up, and they just need to be transferred and be part of the city's structure.
But it is assumed by everybody that I know that it's already been done.
Yeah. It was supposed to have been done, I don't know. Yeah, I thought it had been done a long time
But
ago.
there is nothing on record to say
To
it.
my knowledge, there's nothing in the record to show that that property has actually been deeded to the city's name.
I think that EDA grant we got back in 2007, the building industrial park required that as part of the to do it, that the city was gonna be responsible for the streets, the utilities and everything. I just assume it's been handled between the attorneys, so. There was a lot.
I mean, I can look, be a pretty simple thing to check. I can look at the deed records and see what deed was ever done. Y'all are saying it would have to have been from 2009 forward.
9 or 10.
Okay.
You gonna check that out?
I can look at that.
We finished the construction in 2009,
Okay.
best I remember, so I started 2008 and go forward.
Okay.
I think Gerald was supposed to do that, but
On behalf of the city. Okay.
as the receiver.
Okay. Well, I can take a look at it. I mean, it'll be pretty easy to tell what it's been done.
And the item 1 on that schedule is the one y'all sold in 2020. And being
Well,
there-
we've already sold that 54 acres now.
Right, within this year.
Yeah, that was sold this year.
That just covers 2019 that he's reading right now. There.
Good with them.
I say, you just, that property list you got there just covers 2019.
Yeah, that was as of the end of December 19th, that's right. And Ben tells me I need to change the description on number 5. Oh, and I'll tell you that, the number of that $3,200,000 is to go to the city. When the construction of that park was being done, Ben and I kept up with Ben's records. Ben did the work and I kept up with the numbers on the cost. And this was the cost of the infrastructure portion of it, which means out of the 250 acres, you've got basically a $1.6 million basis in the 250 acres. Once the 3.2 goes to the city. And on the top of page 13, and And before Justin left, I verified with him that this was still the case. When that 550 acres was purchased in November of 2004, which y'all bought 250, they sold 75 acres. I think it was to Jamie McAllister's who that was sold to. And then of the remaining acres, they have already agreed to donate 147 of that acres to the Development Authority for y'all future use. And they're supposed to be holding the remaining 75 acres for your future development, but not necessarily to be given to you. So you may want to keep that in mind. The next part is just a summary of the changes in your capital assets, which is your lease improvements. And by the way, your lease improvements, I think I skipped over stuff. You've got about $11,000 of lease improvements that's gonna have to be written off this year. That was the improvements that y'all had made over there at the old city hall. When they evicted you, you still had like $11,000 undepreciated basis in those assets. I think I need to go back. I went forward before I needed to. All right, I was on page 8, page 9, page 10. Okay, on page 9, there's an explanation in here of what conduit debt is. And conduit debt is debt that's really unique to development authorities. And also on page 16, there's some additional explanation about conduit debt. And what basically, Luke, you help me with this so I get it wrong now. Conduit debt is basically debt that y'all are the makers of, but you're not responsible for it. The lender or the bondholder or the mortgage holder or the bank that makes loans can only look to the assets of the project for which there is conduit debt. And no other assets of the authority can be seized by the debtor if there's a default on that debt. Is that basically?
Well, so I guess you'd be talking about like the solar thing out here, right? Yeah, so the authority owns the property and they do this lease buyback structure. And basically what it amounts to is it just money on paper changing hands. So
Yeah, but what it does now, it allows, because the authority owns the
to
property,
be tax exempt,
well, it allows it to be tax exempt, and it also lets them get financing
right?
at a lower interest rate, which is what it does you can use to attract industry. Because if you're the maker of the note, the bank can make a loan at a lower interest rate. Sometimes it's half as much as what the market rate is. And that's the reason you want to go out there and attract them to industry here, because you can offer them a better deal than they can get if they go to buy themselves somewhere else. And that in tax exempt abatements and so forth is usually the most significant things that you can give to industries to bring them in. But anyway, on page 9 is an explanation of what constitutes conduit debt. And it's what I've tried to say in simple terms, but that's what it is. And the conduit debt that you have now, you've got 2 industries with conduit debt at the end of this year. And there's still one with Crown Laundry, where their financing is with the Citizens National Bank. And you've got Electech, where they've got 2 notes, one with Ameris out of Valdosta, which was the primary financing, and that one was for about close to $1.2 million, I guess, total. Now that was 1.1, I think, and then there was like a $400,000 note that is actually payable to Curtis Pickles. That was intended to be EIP type loan and become a revolving loan with the county, but that didn't go through for a number of reasons, but, so Curtis agreed to continue the financing on it to begin with. And then, the Crown loan was originally $1 million, and it's down to like $570,000. The Electech was a total of $1.5 million to begin with, and it's down to just under $1.2 million.
So Gary, I had it confused. You're not talking about the bond situation.
Yeah,
on
they
the
have
solar.
bonds on that.
Right, you're talking about these other scenarios where we still own the property, and the benefit to the bank is the interest is tax-free to them. That's why they can offer a lower rate. Okay, yeah.
I think the Ameris loan was, instead of being like 5 or 6, it is 3,
Right.
something like that. That's where those development agreements come in, you know, everybody has to sign off on it and everything. Okay, and then on page 11 is some more explanation about your loan, your cash accounts and how they're collateralized or insured by the FDIC. And your cash does include the money that Brooks County has been holding in that Ameris account for property taxes that they have been holding since your original development agreement that started in 2004, I believe, and ended in 2014. And then starting in 2015, because there had not been a renewal of an intergovernmental agreement, the county started holding the money and just doling it out to you like maybe once or twice a year. They'd give you some of it. Have you gotten the money yet? They have given you, they've given
Yes.
you the 800 something thousand, was it?
700 and something.
Alright, and then Stephanie got her first check from the tax commissioner this month also.
Yes, got that today. 745,269.
Okay, well, it was like $625,000 at the end of December. But I always accounted for that money on your books. It was levied in the name of the Development Authority. The taxpayers were billed in the name of the Development Authority, and the taxpayers paid their taxes thinking their money was going to the Development Authority. So I always accounted for it on your books, even though the county held the money. But I've disclosed what it was and what was going on every year. So I'm glad to see that's ended now. I didn't think it should have ever been done in the first place.
Right.
Shouldn't have.
They didn't ask me whether they should do it or not, they just asked me how to account for it. Which we did, and we treated it as a fiduciary fund on the books of the county, so it showed that it was not the county's money also. Then the next, okay, we go over page 12, page 13, there's not much there on that one. The county did have a retirement fund, and of course that one's gone now that Tiffany is gone, but that was a simple, simple IRA account. And the authority contributed like $1,800 to it for her. She put the rest of the money in. And I'm pretty sure that account's been closed now and she rolled it over to somewhere else. I hope she did. Do you know if that's happened yet or not? I think it has. And a little bit of discussion about the intergovernmental agreement. On property tax abatement, this is on page 15, note number 13. We're required to disclose the effect on you for property taxes that have abatements, where taxes are reduced and you don't get your taxes. There's a lot of money in Brooks County that is abated or will be abated, particularly with the solar energy projects coming on, and also with Abington too. Most of those are current, not at 19. There was a little bit in 19 because there was some personal property had been constructed at that time. But your abatement for you for those three, between Crown is none anymore because that one's expired. Electech was only $70. Rayonier was like $500 and something. The Avigin was like $300 and something. But now they didn't get up and going until 20 though, really. And then the solar was none, and Ag Pro had one out there, your abatement on them was like $79. Now, you're not getting much abatement at 0.39 mils, so your numbers are not very high. County's numbers are pretty high though, real high. But you do have those abatements, and I do have to disclose those, and that's what makes up that $1,000 for y'all. Okay, that's about it. Because we've already done what I had to do. Oh, in the very back of your schedule, the last 2 to 3 pages, is a summary of the One Georgia Equity Grant that y'all have, and this is the one that goes to averaging that $300,000. I mean, it shows that the grant was awarded, no money was received, and no money is spent in 2019. But it has been funded down in 20, right? You paid to them?
I haven't received anything for me to give to them, so I haven't received anything yet.
Has everything been done with the property that needs to be done to qualify for them to get the money?
On Aviation,
And yeah,
well, the only thing is, we had one more thing. It was a addendum to the lease that described some of the personal property. We signed it, I sent it to them, and I hadn't heard anything back. So I had to follow back up with them, but that was the last thing the state folks were needing in order to go ahead and,
well, I thought I understood that what they were gonna do on a lease, they paid for themselves and didn't lease it. And just owned the property. But they couldn't provide Justin with the details of the invoices and the amount of what they bought, what they paid for.
well, they came up with something that was a sufficient amount of collateral to satisfy
Justin,
these folks and say, this is $300,000 worth of equipment, and they were gonna go with that. We just needed that one last thing signed by them. There were 3 things that we needed to get to, and we got 2 of them. The third one, I actually was thinking about that today. I need to circle back up with them and see what happened, but we were just waiting on their signature, and that should end that part of it.
almost done. You need to get regional commission, I guess, to assist you in requesting that drawdown.
Will do.
And don't let them drag around and not do the closeout of the grant,
I'll do it.
because they will.
So what was the purpose of the $300,000?
It was, for the purchase of equipment for Abington. And they were supposed to produce the invoices. Normally, when you do that type of a grant, the invoices come to the Development Authority, and the Development Authority applies to DCA, gets approval, and pays, and DCA then funds the authority who writes the check to buy the equipment. Well, that didn't happen this time. They wanted to buy and take care of it all on their end, I guess through their purchasing and engineering departments, however. So it didn't happen, and it's just,
So this is going to reimburse them for that equipment.
It was Edge Funding, I think is the name of
well,
it. EDG.
Yeah, Edge Funding.
Edge Funding.
it came from the One Georgia Authority. That's my presentation.
I have a question. How many years have you been the accountant?
You know, I try to remember that this afternoon.
You're telling your age, huh?
Well, no, not exactly that, I think the Development Authority audit, I've been doing the county since '92, I think it is.
Okay.
But I haven't done the Development Authority all that length of time. We found out about the authority, and the authority began to realize that they were a unit of government, and the state law required that they have an audit. And that's how I got started, and I think that was maybe in the early 2000s.
So you're able,
when we actually started doing audits.
there's a part of your responsibility to accomplish, like if we want the financial, footprint for certain things that were done, we're able to go back in our records and trace the monetary aspects of that, right? Everything that the authority might have related to.
Yeah, well, what I actually did, I sat down with Mr. Long, who had been the attorney for the Development Authority, and he remembered everything. He knew what they had, he knew where it came from, and he could remember if there was any monetary considerations.
So did you take advantage of that and actually document that from his recollection?
Yeah,
Very good.
that's how I started.
Okay, I have an official request. I'd like for you, to, research, the financial footprint for the infrastructure that's on parcel 9001B. I'm telling you all the reason why. Any future development that the authority, has is contingent on that epicenter and the usage of it and connecting the industrial, the factory, the Avian factory. Now, Mr. Devane can be very helpful probably with that because he probably was involved in some of the implementation of the infrastructure. But I would like to know for future reference, because from what I can understand, even the, future development is contingent on, that piece of property sitting there and the infrastructure on there. And then two, I think the authority board should know all of the aspects surrounding the financial footprint of putting that infrastructure on that parcel.
I think where you need to go is to the tax assessor's office and you look at their property records.
That won't help, that won't give you the financial footprint for the amount, monetary expenditures that relate to the infrastructure. It won't give you any of that. It just tells you what the property locations are, but your expert for determining is sitting right there. It tells you how that those sewer lines and all of that impact on that piece of property and everything else in that area.
Well, I don't think I'm gonna have anything on that.
You're not gonna have any of the financial data.
Yeah, I don't know, the only parts that I know of is on page 12 here.
Okay.
Is on page 12. And I don't know that parcel number, so I don't know if that's one of the
Okay,
items.
Mr. Devane, illuminate that situation.
I'm not sure on what, you talking about the utilities that go through the piece the county just bought?
No,
Okay.
the utilities that go through for the Brook Forest and Spring Creek that are contingent on the easement that's on parcel 9001B. And that structure that was put in there around 2007 and 2008, it ought to be a financial footprint as to what the amount of money, what was put in there, and who paid for that, and who authorized that, and all of that. And if that piece of parcel of land is going to be used for future development, it sure has to be clarified, especially since it was unauthorized. So do you know the, intricacies of, financial intricacies of that process?
No, I don't. I know the city ran the, water and sewer and gas in that, what was set aside as a street and utility easement, and down to those apartments. I don't know what to call
And that
it.
community block grant, where does that money originate from?
From Department of Community Affairs, you get a grant for a project like streets or drainage or utilities, like we did out at Purdue Heights.
Mm-hmm. And is that implemented through our authority or through the city or the county or?
Usually the city or the county.
The city or the county?
I
Okay.
think we could do it, but, usually it's through the city or the county, depending on where the.
The reason I ask that is when you look at the, city notes during that interim of time, it alludes to the authority board having their hands in the process.
Could be. It's been a long time, but
Where is that property she's talking about?
down Washington Street by where the Washington Street School was,
Uh-huh.
down there, that blank piece of property county just bought. There's some utilities running through the back of it, going over to the Brook Forest Department down on Madison Road.
Right, for brevity, the sake of brevity, I can elucidate it for you. If you remove all of the infrastructure on 9001B, then the residents that are in Brook Forest, that are in Spring Creek, and indirectly, he probably will bear that out, it would even stop operations at Averton. It's the epicenter for so much of the sewage, water, utilities in that whole area. That's why I'm saying it should be a very good financial blueprint for that whole process occurring. But you're saying that you technically couldn't find that, couldn't ascertain.
I don't recall anything related to that in either the Development Authority or the county.
So when, in the city notes, when you see that, certain people on the authority board were authorizing things in conjunction with the city and all, is that just an unusual process that happened during that time, but that's not really the regular order of things?
Well, no, it could be the order of things. I mean, they can do things together jointly and have done so over the years.
Okay, you answered my question.
Some of the CDBG grants have required, and funding has required participation
To participate.
by the city and the county.
Okay, you answered my
There
question.
have been one or two of them that I know of that the Development Authority's been in on.
What are those names?
Well, Purdue Heights was a CDBG grant. I remember that one. That's been actually one of the more recent ones, I guess it was completed.
It's been longer than you think.
It's
Back
been
in
a while.
In the 80s or early 90s.
Yeah, they hadn't had a CDBG in a long time. Well, I mean, CDBG is in Board Control Club, CDBG grant.
Okay, and the notes refer to that there was a large, I think at $900 and something thousand CBG, that same community block grant, where our authority board actually entered into that process. So you answered my question about all of the parties.
Well,
Can
the
enter the list.
Development Authority could possibly have been involved in it as a pass-through for a grant. But the property you're describing is in the city limits of Quitman, which means it was probably their grant that was done.
Was a city grant.
It was a city grant, not a county grant.
And even though the authority board might have had their hands in it, it was more or less, within the, under the authorization of the city.
It would be a city grant, yeah.
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What we normally do now is we have y'all accept the audit.
Yes, we got to accept the audit. Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept the audit as given? A motion?
I make a motion.
You
I
make a
second.
motion? Second?
I second.
Okay, Doc seconds, all in favor? Aye? Okay. Thank you again very much. But you need to read this, all of us would need to read it. It's got a lot of information in there. Okay,
Blankthorpe Films update, I was just gonna let you know they were back in town and they have either, I believe, I'll find out tomorrow whether or not they are closing or if they just made the offer and they're in the process of closing on the old Swanee Swifty building. So I know that agreement has come to a head, and so I know that they're gonna be moving forward with that development. So, great news there. That's it on that one. Project M is a project for an industry that had approached us a little over a month ago, and they were back in town Friday. It would be a significant investment in Brooks County. Some permanent jobs. It's a very, very good project, very good possibility for us. And so they're just letting you know that as that continues and progresses, then I'm allowed to divulge more, then I will. But at this point, that's really all I can say. Other than it's just, it's really significant and very, very promising. They're excited to be down in Brooks County.
Can you give us an indication of how many jobs during?
Estimated between 15 and 20 jobs after construction. So during construction, it would be significantly more, obviously, for about 18 months, and then after that, it would be 15 to 20 jobs. That's it on that. And then, we go down to our community grants. For Barwick, they're getting their list together. They have already started getting me a preliminary list, and once I have that for 2021, I'll give that to you in January. It's just, some things like they're looking at improving their green spaces, adding things like park benches and grills, things like this in their green spaces, as well as signage for City Hall, and just projects like that. So as I get that, then I'll be able to pass that along to you. Then in Pavo, we had done it through a remote vote. Their Christmas lights said that they would allow them to go ahead and get their lights in, which are up and they're beautiful. That was for $15,898. That was, voted and approved between, it was unanimously actually through November 18th and 19th, and we need to ratify that. But I will say too that, Chief Burgess has said he's been stopped even in traffic, just people flagging him down saying, this is our hometown, and they said they can't remember it being so beautiful for the holidays. They're just thrilled that the Development Authority has done this for them, and they're very excited. So they're working on some other projects for us, which we'll go over in a moment. So I need that ratified. We need a motion to ratify that.
I make a motion, we ratify.
I second.
Motion and second that we ratify these grants. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.
The next, is the signage in and out of Pavo. As you see, there's two, well, going back, it was supposedly by the board about a year, well, I was told about 2 years ago, and I was also confirmed that by our previous director, Tiffany Holmes, had said that that had been approved. But for whatever reason, it just kind of drug on over the last couple of years. So, now that I guess they realized that we were serious about doing something with their signage, they've already got that in, and I cannot find in the minutes where that had been approved, so we kind of have to go through that process again of you approving it. But the first estimate that you have, which